we're going to move on now to our student panel. And so we have Diana here and Abby and Thomas sitting together. If you guys want to come on down, I'm going to ask you one at a time to introduce yourselves. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
And just talk about how you found the research position that you have. I guess first just introduce who you are, what your school, your well, I think we're all MCB majors, or I wouldn't have invited you here. Maybe what your long-term goals are, and just a little bit about what you do in the lab, things that you think that a student would like to know.
I'll hold it. I don't really know how this works. Hi, I'm Diana. I'm a junior, as you can see up there. I work in Dr. Yano's lab, who just spoke. Amazing professor and man all in one, so great job, great time working there, I guess. MCB major, Spanish minor. I've been working there for 3 semesters now, so like they both said, it's really important to stay in there for quite some time to get the best possible experience you can out of it. In the future, I want to go to medical school, and I know a lot of you said something like that as well. I'm not looking to do a PhD right now, but who knows, that might change. So like Dr. Yano said, it is an auditory neuroscience lab. So we look at how complex sounds such as speech are processed by the auditory system. We look at different parts of the brain and how they communicate when you're hearing different things. I, as a student, do a lot of tissue processing, and it's okay if you don't know what a lot of these techniques are right now, because I didn't either. And I started my 2nd semester freshman year, so they teach you a lot, if that shows you anything. I'm also starting on some anatomy projects, so like he said, perfusions, doing things with fixed tissues, looking at them under microscopes, taking pictures of them, imaging. We put tracers into one part of the brain and then look at where they end up.
How did you find your research position?
Oh, I emailed. So I did exactly what I went to this presentation when I was a freshman, and I looked on the website. I researched neuroscience because that's what I wanted to do. And I found Dr. Yano, but I also found a bunch of other professors. I emailed about 10 professors, and like Tina said, don't email them all at once. I did about 5 at a time. But he didn't get back to me for quite some time, which is super understandable because he's so busy, and all the other professors are so busy. You might not get any response. You might get a response months later. And that's totally fine. They're really, like I said, super busy people, so make your email very short and sweet. Just show them who you are, why you're interested, and that's all. Say thank you, because they don't have time to read a whole paragraph of an email. So, okay.
Hi guys, I am Abby, and I'm a junior in the MCB Honors Program, and I am just starting my 3rd semester in Dr. Lori Weitzman's lab. So she's in the Department of Molecular and Integrative Physiology, and she also does neuroscience. She's in that program. And we work with a cell-to-cell mechanism called Notch signaling, and we kind of ask how Notch signaling leads to the differentiation of stem cells in the pituitary gland. And so I was initially interested in this work because I also am a pre-med student. I hope to do primary care someday, but I was interested in kind of the more physiology part of lab work, and how I could tie it into, learning about the human body more. And also, as a future, hopefully, medical student, I kind of wanted that perspective of how do we know what we know, and how do we kind of like obtain the information we learn. So that's kind of why I chose a kind of more physiology and neuroscience lab. And kind of repeating what she said, the first year, how I found the lab. So I found the lab because I actually took a class with Dr. Reitzman my freshman year. I don't know if they still do discovery courses. Oh, it was such a good class. But there was 13 girls in the class, and it was phenomenal. And it was kind of just like a introductory class to MCB and endocrinology, and so it was great. But whenever I looked into different research labs spring of my freshman year, kind of in looking forward to sophomore year. So I didn't start my freshman year, but I emailed people like during spring break. So during spring break my freshman year, I was like, okay, here's kind of what I'm looking for, something more physiology based, and so I narrowed it down to 3 professors that I was interested in, and I sent them all an email, and one of them was Dr. Reitzman, and then the other 2 I just kind of like what has been said, I sent why I'm interested, and I made sure to highlight some of their work. I did some research on what they do, and then I sent my unofficial transcript and also a resume in the email, and then they all 3 replied, but one of them said, well, we aren't looking for anyone right now, but I'll like keep you on, like on the list or whatever. So I then interviewed with 2 of the 3, and I actually, in the lab that I didn't end up choosing, I actually spent like 3 weeks kind of rotating in it to see if I actually enjoyed the lab, because that's what she recommended doing. So I just followed an undergraduate student who was doing undergraduate research, and she just like showed me what she was doing, and I probably spent 5 hours a week for those 3 weeks. And at the same time, I was also like interviewing with Dr. Reitzman's lab, and then I was just kind of like, Dr. Reitzman's lab fit more with what I was looking for. And so then I just told the other professor that there was one that piqued my interest a little bit more, and she was completely understanding, because the reason that she wanted us to kind of rotate a little in the lab was for that very reason. So yeah, I think that is it. But oh yeah, going off what she said, it does take a full year almost before you feel confident in yourself, because lab work is very hard. You learn like PCR and stuff in class, and you learn it kind of like the cognitive side, but then actually putting it to work is a completely different story. And so I'm really glad that I started out with the whole data processing thing, and then tissue processing, and then actually right now I just started my own project under the grad student I work for. So it does take a long time before you feel even confident enough to like do a IHC by yourself. And don't be afraid to mess up, because you mess up all the time, and they understand that, because don't feel bad about yourself. So yeah.
Yeah, I have to do like a whole presentation of stuff I've messed up for all the new undergrads. Anyways, my name's Thomas Bain. I'm a junior in MCB Honors, and I guess I should explain why I'm the only one here who's not in the MCB lab. So my career goals, I want to go to medical school, be an orthopedic surgeon, so interested in bones, muscles, tendons, ligaments, that sort of thing. So what I did was I basically just Googled UIUC research, and then I typed in bones, tendons, muscles, ligaments, and then I looked through a bunch of papers, and eventually I found the Wheeler papers, and they're all about regenerative bone medicine. So essentially, if you have comminuted fractures where the bone's shattered, you use tissue engineering with a scaffold and different stem cells within it to regenerate that bone, drastically reducing the healing process for it. So I was like, wow, that's awesome. That's totally what I want to do in the future. So I emailed him, I let him know, I was like, I've read your papers, they sound exactly like what I want to do in the future. Like, even if I was an orthopedic surgeon, I would want to continue helping with this type of research, and I attached my resume and all that stuff, and they emailed me back saying, we'd love to have you on. So I started the summer of my freshman year, which I really recommend working over the summer. I think the position I'm in my lab right now, I don't think I'd be in it if I didn't work over the summer. So I worked over my freshman summer, and then I worked over my sophomore summer as well. And I think it's just like, the first summer was basically just me finding stuff that's wrong with the project, and I wasn't blamed. They don't care if you mess up, it's okay. But essentially, by the time I'm now, I've basically worked out all the kinks, and I've actually been able to help. I'm in a position now where I can help teach other undergrads who are now joining the lab to not repeat the same mistakes I've made. So yeah, I've actually I've had a lot of experience in it. I've already put out 2 abstracts into the International Engineering Tissue Sciences or something. I think it's IETS. That's the program. I'm actually currently working on a paper that combines a bunch of it. So yeah, it's definitely research is a good experience. And it's important to start early because, like, the later it is, you're not going to be at the level that you need to be to actually get. If you want to have stuff published, you won't be at that level if you apply too late. Is there anything else?
Okay, so I specifically invited you because you weren't in an MCV lab, and I wanted students to see that there was a lot you can do outside of MCV as well. Do you have questions for these students? They're doing what you hope to be doing. Diana, I probably should, I don't know if I should put you on the spot for this, but you were in a lab previously, right? So you tried it out, and do you mind talking about how you started there and why you are not doing that again?
So I was in a different neuroscience lab freshman year too. I was kind of trying out both of them. And this lab, I was doing more of things that I just didn't enjoy. I really liked the professor and the graduate student and everyone else in the lab too. So it was actually really hard for me to tell them that I shouldn't be working there. And it was a great experience too, so I can still talk about it as well. But that one was researching depression and neurotransmitters and stuff. It was so cool. But we did a lot of just reading papers and discussing them, which a lot of students really enjoyed in the lab, but I did not want to be doing that. I wanted to be doing more hands-on work, which is what I get in this lab. So I guess that's how I realized that I should switch labs. And you should never stay in something that you don't enjoy, so.
So I wanted her to talk about that because one of the things that you'll find is maybe you don't like research. That's okay. You have learned something from that. If you get into a lab, even if you get into it and say, I'm committing until I graduate, the professor isn't going to want you to stay there if that's not the right place for you. So what you have to do is get up the courage to have a conversation with them and say, listen, this is not exactly what I thought it was going to be. I know I committed to X, but I'm not sure that that's the best use of my time or the best use of your time. You want to make sure that you part on good terms because you may need that person for a letter of recommendation in the future, or you may need that person to get your next research position. So it is okay to try it and decide that's not what you want to do. Okay? Faculty members are usually very understanding. They don't want to waste their time any more than they want you to waste your time. You just have to be honest with them. I know it can sometimes be scary to talk to them, but they're just regular people. Okay, I have just a couple more slides, but do you have any other questions for our student panel? Yeah.
How challenging is it to balance your academics versus your time in the lab?
That's a great question. So I'll let each of them just talk about how they balance their time in the lab versus their academics.
So I work 10 hours a week in my lab, and mine's pretty structured. I come in the same times every week. So at the beginning of the semester, I just talked with my grad student, and I sat down with her, and we just okay, when is the best time? So you usually need at least 4 hours, blocked out time. You can't just come in for 1 or 2 to run your experiments. But it's kind of hard now that I'm starting my own project, because it's a lot, I'm doing a lot more of learning, because all the things, you'll learn really quickly that all the things that your lab does, everyone in your lab is an expert in except you, and so it takes a lot of work to just learn what stem cells actually are and what that kind of looks like in regards to research aspects. So it is hard, but again, if you are committed to it, then you'll make it a priority, and I would recommend being consistent in the hours that you come in. Makes it a lot easier, because then it feels kind of like a structured job instead of just going in when you feel like it.
Yeah, kind of going off that, it's important to budget your time. So I've been lucky in my lab. They have the policy of, you work as long as you need to get everything that you need to get done, and you come in when you can. So I try and find little blocks in my schedule of like, yeah, you definitely can't do an hour. You can't just do it between like an hour gap between class. You need at least 2 hours, probably more. So I try and find little gaps, even if that's after your classes. Like say you end class at like 2, you go in from lab 2 to 4. That works. So it's really it depends on what lab you're in, but I would communicate with your graduate student, your postdoc, or whoever you're working under, and I would show them your schedule, and I'd be like, these are the times that I'm available, do they work for you? So I would definitely make that more personal.
Do you guys work many evenings, weekends? Can you talk about that a little bit? Or is it usually during the work week?
I've been lucky. I've not been having to come in. I've been working on the weekends like once, and that was when we were actually putting our scaffold into a pig. So that was kind of a special circumstance. But other than that, I've been pretty lucky. I usually get done around 5 every day during the week.
Yeah, I've only had to work one weekend too, and that's just because our experiment didn't run. So again, if you kind of had that perspective of I don't want to fall behind, then you might come in, and it's not too much work. And if you really enjoy it, then it's kind of fun to come in on the weekend. It's a lot chill.
I've never had to work on a weekend yet. I have class every day, like 8 to 5, and they understand that except Thursday and Friday when I'm done at 2, so they want me to come in at 2. So it's perfect. So you just have to communicate with them, and they're very understanding. But basically, yeah, I just work week hours, basically.
So that should give you a really nice perspective on undergraduate research. What it is, how to get involved. You heard from a couple of the faculty, you heard from some students. One of the things that I want to tell you is, don't be too freaked out by what they said about the commitment. So those of you that are freshmen and sophomores, you're at the prime time to be looking for research. That's who they're really looking for. If you are a junior and senior, don't freak out and think that there's no possible way that you'll ever find a position in lab. A lot of times, if you look outside of MCB, if you're looking for more of a short-term project, you might find faculty members outside of MCB who are able to do that. Psychology might be a place that you can look. Some of the, I don't know so much about crop science or animal science, but if you're looking for something shorter term, you might be able to do that. You might be able to do just a summer research internship somewhere. On the MCB advising website, you can find some, we do have a couple of links to summer programs. I don't know if it's been completely updated yet, but that might be something that you look into. I know Dr. Yano had mentioned that you can get some scholarships to do summer undergraduate research. So if you get involved in a lab, in the summer, MCB will for sure have 7 scholarships available for students who are doing undergraduate research. You'll have to apply for it, most likely in January, February. Watch for something to come out in Roadmap. But there are going to be 5 that are worth $5,000 for the summer, 2 that are for women in science that are $3,000 for the summer, and I believe the School of MCB is going to be sponsoring some students as well. I don't know how many, and I don't know what the dollar amount will be, but that's something that you can look for. If staying in the summer, if that concerns you because of money for having to have an apartment or something like that, those are things that you can look into. And there are labs that don't require you to work during the summer, so I didn't want you to stress out too much about that. Okay, so Just a little bit about graduation with distinction. If you get involved in undergraduate research, if you stick with it for at least 2 semesters, and each of those semesters you sign up for MCB 290 and you're earning at least 2 credit hours in those 2 semesters. Then in your final semester on campus, this is the important thing, you can only do MCB 492 in your final semester on campus. And this is what you would do if you want to write a senior thesis and you're hoping to earn distinction at graduation. So in MCB there are several ways to earn distinction. You can earn it through academics. If you have a major GPA of 3.9 or higher in the final semester before you graduate, or in your penultimate semester before you graduate, you can earn academic distinction. There are 3 ways to earn research distinction. One is to do research, MCB 290 research for at least 3 semesters, and then present that research at a symposium. There's a campus-wide symposium every spring that you can attend, or you might be able to travel to a conference with your lab to give a poster presentation. So that allows you to earn distinction. If you want to earn high or highest distinction, then you have to present a poster. You have to have a minimum GPA of 3.25 for high distinction, a minimum GPA of 3.9 for highest, and then you also have to write a senior thesis. And so in those cases, you would register for MCB 492. You would have to have the support of the faculty member that you're working with. They need to know that you've done enough and that you have enough data to present and to write about. And then you need to make sure that you register by the appropriate deadlines. Again, there's a lot of information that you can find on our website about distinction, and if you want more information, you're more than welcome to make an appointment to meet with me to talk about that further, but I think the first step is just getting you into MCB 290. Any general questions about research distinction? All right, you guys have stuck with me for almost an hour and a half. That shows some good commitment. You're on the path to getting a research position. This is just some take-home points. So you can earn course credit by registering for MCB 290 and getting research credit. You want to make sure that you start early in looking for research. So if you start freshman or sophomore year and looking for it, that's great, but I guess a little bit more of a timeline. So those of you right now, it's probably too late to find research for this fall. You might be able to shadow a student in lab for a couple of weeks, kind of rotate through like Abby was talking about. You might be able to do that, but you're not going to be able to earn research credit this fall because we've already passed all of the deadlines to do that. What I would suggest is if you're looking for something in the spring, that you start sending those emails out probably end of October, beginning of November. That would be a good time to start looking for spring research. If you can't do spring research, if you're not ready for that yet and you want to wait to do it for summer or fall, then I would say right after spring break. That's a good time to look for a summer position or a fall position. So that's what I would suggest. Biggest take-home point is know that all of our faculty are different, especially if you're looking in different colleges on this campus. Make sure you know what the faculty expects of you, who you will be working with, how often you need to be there. Make sure you treat it as a job. Be respectful of their time, be professional. You will make mistakes. That's the thing about research. I did research for 8.5 years after I graduated, and sometimes you run the same experiment 20 times before you get it right. So you learn a lot from your failures. You figure out what went wrong, what you can do better next time. Don't be afraid to fail. They're not going to kick you out of the lab. But do be respectful. And then the last thing is just make sure you have fun. Learn a lot. This is a really great opportunity for all of you.